Part 1. You'll Get Fleas. Sweep your palms along your head. Ticks, Mom said, are the worst of all. Check for them after running through swing-set arches, dodging Velcro and bow-tied shoes, after screeching in the willow tree, playing fairies with the girls next door. We never did, of course. Before they left to grill short ribs, my parents sat us on the curb. Alan and I knew worse than this day. Using whatever we could to escape, acorns as flashbangs or sweaty crocs as ninja stars, we shed our shirts and ran off hollering. They watched us plow a patch of violets, pinky fingers thrown toward the browning maples, as using our middles warranted a timeout. None of us knew when they'd start chasing. Past the Fisher's wet driveway, where tetherball sets were punching bags, we turned our heads to check. Darting through fresh-cut lawns was their carelessness, hot and slow as they set down the dishes. Mom balanced a cheese tray on the steps out front, waving a blissful "see you soon" as we ran for nothing's sake. For a second, they were no more than strangers, a condensation of imagined summer heat sans any real warmth. But as we slowed our pace, I realized we'd been tricked. Mom was the first to follow, relentless in her raspberry-striped sandals and her vintage theory dress. Dad came next. Sprinting from behind the car, he was half eaten by the trunk and his grocery bags. Our neighbor, Ravioli, strung lights from his gutters to the fir trees that split our backyards. By the time we were caught, 8 seconds later, Alan was a rag doll in half-loose grasp. Mom, right then and there, tweezed for ticks from white bedrock. Rather than clicking her tongue when she saw them, her disapproval was stamped with a stout "ah-ya." She'd occasionally stop to procure insects from nowhere and everywhere, lice eggs like pearls that clung to a hair, or concrete mites that stained her thumbs red. Part 2. Scab. All that was a lie. Besides the evidence of crushed bug on old clothes, there was none supporting my being at an Italian backyard party, nor did I remember a time where Mom wore that dress that I tried on 10 months ago. The violets remained upright. The willow and the cavity of its underskirt were mine alone. Much of my childhood in Jersey's bleached out, but bronzed orange by some working of the brain. Ravioli's family did host from time to time, but the only time I actually remember seeing one was from Mom's bedroom, after a nightmare, wet in acrid sheets, watching the backyard shimmer. Now that I think about it, I do remember the collapsing dome of those tiny Trader Joe's ice cream cones and a white paper cup, but I can't remember if these were on separate days or not. My memories tend to clump, leaving white spots once converged. Filling in the blank spots has become a sort of chore for the weak points in my bed. There are times where it's enjoyable, for example, falling back to the first grade when I found my berry in the closet. But for the most part, I wish it was all wiped out. Had I not been left the mysterious context for my suspicions of poisoned youth, I have no doubt that my time in the outdoors would be free, from nervous glances backward toward figures in the brambles, or the slash of fear upon seeing organs in the mushrooms that sprout up from the earth. I had spoken to a friend about it recently. We'd gotten dinner last week, her hand up and down my prickly shins. The words stretched out over lamb and coconut rice, rebounding by the War Veteran Memorial, only to collapse into letters on the bench by the road. I'm tired, I diluted, of this self-investigation. I'm tired of this groping in the dark for some hand or claw or groin or whatever to reach back and tell me that this is why you are what you are. There is a reason behind your attractions and reactions, and this is it. I found it in your kindergarten cubby. During these confessionals, I disappear, and from behind my teeth, my elementary school self returns. Claustrophobia takes form in collapsing air, and the singularity wedged deep within my ribs. Sorry, let me repeat that part. My apologies. Claustrophobia takes form in collapsing air, the singularity wedged deep within my ribs. My nails grow short. The marbled flesh in my hands gain an alluring quality. When I'm out of calcium to chew on, my fingerprints are shorn off. I turn and see, in oil-stained glass, a face I wish weren't so familiar. It bears a look one could only sympathize with or pity. Carried in its sockets lie chunks of driftwood, and attached to periods of quiet, if one were to look my way, they'd sense the present weariness of the physically ailed, in the rounding of my shoulders, the restlessness of curled fingers around some invisible trigger. I hate it all. I hate the wanderings before bed. I hate the scraping on my tongue for phantom contagions, the mesh of rot around my psyche, the etch-a-sketch tattoos from faces I'd seen in movies and recreated because I didn't know any better. The walks back from the train station, 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. The missed calls from Mom. the staring at arteries, wondering which would have been the softest landing pad. The way I swallow my mucus with the knowledge that it'll choke on its way back up. It's to satisfy an urge, I think, or a learned behavior, to force the miasmic cluster down. Swallow, swallow, swallow. It's not all hollowing, though. I think all of this thinking has left room for the concrete which I can appreciate. The scattering of rice cakes for pigeons in the AIDS Memorial Garden, or the orange rind on my eyelids when it gets too bright. Or the scratched up bangles I refuse to take off because Mom got them for me. The Milky Way, the inverted Milky Way, colliding with blackened Andromeda, residual stars landing on my nose as freckles. I only wish I could speak about it more. Those closest to me know little of the extent of the extent to which I've wondered about my childhood, and worse, no less of the drafting of this prologue, as my earliest memory, my earliest knowledge of the tar pits of it all, romped about in the apartment we lived in before I even started school. I may never tell it to them, most likely won't. There's no appropriate setting for the unfolding of my skin and turning it inside out. Part 3. Alcoholics Anonymous. It never got this bad before. The hands turned cradle for a face, snapping shut as if the screws malfunctioned. The push and pull at the frustrating rebound of my skin. I hadn't had a crush in a long time, not one this intense, at least. In my notebook, torn up instruction manuals carry loose mutterings from my temples as I'd run out of post-its. On them, anxieties about imagined closeness and the poems I spat out to confirm my feelings, framed by the empty bits of paper I'd left intentionally for an organized effect. Longings for little universes, where history isn't asked for and is instead offered loosely, in the morning, over empty orange glasses, as we stand by the kitchen sink. I'd forgotten how infatuation comes not only with euphoria, but a slow, creeping desolation. Toward the beginning of the journal, you can see my frazzled stomach coming out via mechanical pencil lead. I'd written, I forgot what it's like to have a crush. This jitterbug heart and knuckle drum beat, the loose tightening of my brows, the constant reopening of my messages. What a feeling. I'm not going to wish it away, nor will I bury it in quicksand. I'm nervous for his response, if I even get one, but at least I threw it out there. A post-it displaying a song lyric paired with a flower is one of my favorite things in here. It says, pick all the petals off of the daisies, one by one. A teardrop falls in the trail of a dotted loop-de-loop from the stem daisy. The date reads June 2nd, 2026. A little while later, however, my pining takes the shape of a heavy stone, dislodging itself from my diaphragm and letting loose a stream of cold air that reads, I pretend this boiled egg is your eye. Split down the long way, the yolk stares back. I play with the cornea, the iris, pupil, sclera. I trail my fork along the waterline, brush away the sesame seed and red pepper flake. I'm not hungry anymore. Part 4, Untitled. There's only so much self-help bullshit that I can take before its promises of anti-fog fall short and fill with chlorine. I find myself here again, coiled loosely, cheek to dirtied cushions, the brain tenderizer on full blast. YouTube videos about video games in place of playing them keeps him quiet. If we were to lie here any longer, I'd grow mold. Not that it make much of a difference. Decomposers can't dig past bone. Thinking is impossible at this point. I eat to stifle him, sleep and pray for the same. Stand before the sink, chin tilted, hiding myself so he as well can't find me. I can't even brush my teeth or shear the plaque from them. It creeps in through the gums and lands in each chamber, passing the threshold of blue and red until they block blood flow. I feel him now, pushing out at all angles from my chest. He's almost here, I'm sure of it. I've been trying to find a cure on my old post-its or a journal entry from a few months ago, but all they provide is the insistent cycle of a mindset scaffolded by years in the counseling wing, waxing and waning, both in the high and middle schools. Healthy eating, then binge, then running, then forgiving myself that doesn't require apologies. I don't know which lunar phase I'm in at the moment. Perhaps I swung out of orbit completely, knocked off course, as if the earth were swatting at flies, and now I've lost any distinguishability from the vacuum beyond me. A concrete journal as evidence that it all gets better soon, that I'll once again turn gray, is all I need right now. we're almost at 10 minutes. I'm gonna cut it out right there. But I've been working on this collection of little mini essays for a while. I think I started the first portion in the fall of 2025, I want to say. But these are basically about my childhood, me thinking about my childhood and the things that I'm missing, but I'm trying to piece together. But no matter how many jigsaws that fall into place, there's still a massive empty hole in the center that I don't think I'll ever be able to complete. And maybe there's a reason for that, but who knows.